I can't hide it anymore. Those words, spoken in a trembling voice by ONS JABEUR, landed like thunder across the tennis world. For a player who had built her reputation on joy, on laughter, on being the game's so-called minister of happiness, this was not simply a confession, it was an unmasking. For years, Jabeur has embodied optimism on the WTA Tour. With her mischievous grin and playful drop shots, she brought a lightness that charmed fans and confounded opponents. She represented hope for Tunisia, for Africa, and for the Arab world at large. A pioneer in a sport historically dominated by Europe, North America, and Australia. She was the figure who smiled even when the burden on her shoulders grew almost unthinkably heavy. Yet behind that smile, the storm had always been gathering, and when she finally admitted that she could not keep it hidden any longer, the illusion shattered. This was no longer about a lost match or two. It was about scars left by crushing defeats on the sport's grandest stages and the unbearable pressure of carrying an entire continent's ambition. Her words had changed everything. Suddenly, the tennis community began to see not just a skillful shot maker or a charismatic ambassador, but a woman trembling under the weight of history. A woman who had come within touching distance of greatness, only to have it slip from her grasp. Twice at Wimbledon, once at the U.S. Open. Each time, heartbreak carved itself deeper into her story. Jabeur's admission also redefined how she is perceived. No longer just the entertainer, no longer only the trailblazer, she is now the vulnerable protagonist of one of tennis's most compelling modern dramas. And in Britain, where centre court itself witnessed her tears, this confession resonates with an almost Shakespearean poignancy. The question that follows is simple, yet enormous. Is this the breaking point, or the beginning of her rebirth? To truly understand the gravity of ONS JABEUR's confession, one must first understand the road she has traveled. She was not born into the manicured tennis academies of Florida or the glittering clubs of Paris. Her journey began in Sar-Helel, Tunisia, a small town where clay courts were cracked and resources scarce. Tennis balls were reused until their fuzz disappeared, and rackets were handed down rather than bought brand new. From this modest backdrop emerged a girl whose hunger for the sport seemed insatiable. Coaches spoke of a teenager with hands of gold, a natural gift for improvisation. But talent alone does not defy geography. To break into the global tennis elite from North Africa, it was almost unthinkable. Yet Jabeur did it, with stubbornness, with humor, and with an unyielding belief that she belonged. By the time she reached the upper echelons of the WTA, she had already become far more than a tennis player. She was a symbol of possibility for millions of young girls across the Arab world, a living example that the impossible might be achieved. Each slice, each drop shot, each daring forehand carried not just her career ambitions, but also the dreams of a continent that had never produced a female Grand Slam champion. And here lies the cruel paradox. The very thing that made her rise so inspirational also made her burden almost unbearable. Unlike her rivals from tennis powerhouses, who represent nations with long traditions and multiple champions, Jabeur stands as a lone flag-bearer. Every victory is history. Every defeat feels like disappointment on a continental scale. By 2022, she had etched her name into history as the first Arab woman to reach a Grand Slam final. The British press dubbed her the people's darling of Wimbledon. Crowds adored her variety, her unpredictable style, her ability to make center court laugh and gasp in equal measure. Yet as she walked out onto that iconic grass, she was not just playing for herself, she was carrying the weight of two continents, Africa and the Arab world, on her shoulders. It is in that context that her tearful confession makes sense. When she says she can no longer hide the pressure, she is speaking about something larger than tennis. She is admitting to the crushing reality of being both pioneer and performer, icon and athlete, hero and human. The tears of 2023 were not born in a vacuum. They were the culmination of wounds inflicted in 3 separate Grand Slam finals, each leaving its own scar, each deepening the doubts that now haunt ONS JABEUR. It began on the hallowed lawns of Wimbledon, 2022. Jabeur walked onto center court as the first Arab woman to contest a Grand Slam final, her smile wide, her drop shots dazzling. For one set, she looked untouchable. She carved through Elena Rybakina with artistry, taking the opener 6-3. The crowd could sense it. History was within reach. But then came the unraveling. Rybakina steadied, her serve thundering down like the artillery. Jabeur's rhythm faltered, her grip on destiny loosened. She lost the next two sets 2-6, 2-6. What had begun as triumph ended as a collapse. Just weeks later in New York, she faced world number 1 Iga Swiatek at the U.S. Open final. If Wimbledon was about opportunity, Flushing Meadows was about survival. Jabeur fought bravely, mixing drop shots with slices, trying desperately to unpick Swiatek's relentless defense. Yet the pole was unyielding. The Tunisian fell 2-6, 6-7, another chance squandered, another scar added to her collection. But the deepest wound came back on Wimbledon grass in 2023. This time, Jabeur arrived not as the underdog, but as the favorite. The story seemed written, redemption awaited. The crowd adored her, the stage was ready, the fairy tale finally within reach. Yet the script betrayed her. Against Marketa Vondrousova, her nerves betrayed her hand. Unforced errors piled up, her body language sagged, and the Czech, with nothing to lose, played freely. Jabeur lost 4-6, 4-6, and then came the image that haunts millions. Jabeur sobbing through the trophy ceremony, shoulders shaking under the weight of disappointment. For fans, it was devastating. They had cheered her artistry, celebrated her humor, believed in her destiny. Now, seeing her broken, they broke with her. Social media filled with messages of love. "We cried with you, ONS," wrote one. Another, "You inspire us because you are human." Unlike the ice-cold champions who mask their emotions, Jabeur let the world in, and that vulnerability only deepened the bond. Experts, too, weighed in. Martina Navratilova admired her variety, but warned that touch and creativity are the hardest skills to execute under pressure. Chris Evert, ever empathetic, noted, "It's not just tennis for ONS. It's history." And that's a heavy burden for one person to carry. Andy Roddick observed that against the big hitters, Rybakina, Sabalenka, Jabeur's intricate style requires nerves of steel. And those nerves have often betrayed her. And yet, beneath the pity and the analysis lies a paradox. These very scars, public and painful as they are, have only made Jabeur's journey more compelling. She is no longer just a talented shotmaker. She is a symbol of vulnerability, courage, and the cruel theater of sport. Every time she steps back onto a Grand Slam stage, the world will not just ask whether she can win, it will ask whether she can heal. So where does ONS JABEUR go from here? After 3 brutal finals and a confession that stripped away her armor, the Tunisian star stands at a crossroads. Yet within the heartbreak lies a blueprint for renewal. First, the mind. Reports from her camp suggest she is working closely with a sports psychologist, an essential step in transforming vulnerability into resilience. The greatest champions, from Novak Djokovic to Andy Murray, have spoken openly about mental coaching as the difference between falling short and crossing the line. For Jabeur, taming the storm inside her head may prove as vital as perfecting any stroke. Second, the game itself. While her artistry delights crowds, her reliance on touch and variety can become fragile under pressure. Simplification may be her salvation, serving bigger, taking fewer risks in tight moments, and trusting power. It is no coincidence that the world remembers ONS JABEUR's tears most vividly on the lawns of Wimbledon. For Britain, center court is not just a sporting arena. It is a cathedral of drama, a place where triumph and tragedy unfold with almost theatrical rhythm. To see Jabeur, the minister of happiness, undone by her own emotions on that very stage, gave her story a uniquely British resonance. Wimbledon is where heroes are crowned and legends undone. Jana Novotna's collapse in 1993, Andy Murray's years of heartbreak before glory in 2013. These are woven into the fabric of the All England Club. Jabeur now stands in that lineage, her sobs echoing in the same amphitheater that once hosted the anguish of champions who later found redemption. For British fans, there is an intimacy to her struggle. They recognize the nobility of effort, the courage of vulnerability. They saw it in Murray's grimaces, in Tim Henman's near misses, or in Novotna's tears. And so Jabeur, though Tunisian by birth, feels almost adopted, her journey embraced as part of the wider narrative of Wimbledon's theater. Globally, her impact extends far beyond the white lines of grass. She's already rewritten history. First Arab woman in a Grand Slam final and first African woman in the top 10, a beacon for regions long absent from tennis's biggest stages. Whether or not she lifts a trophy, she has changed the sport's geography forever. Yet the question remains, can she transform pain into triumph? 2025 looms like a reckoning. With experience, with mental armor strengthened, with crowds firmly behind her, could this be the year she finally claims what destiny has so cruelly denied? If she does, the roar on center court will not just celebrate a champion. It will celebrate resilience, history, and the triumph of a woman who dared to carry the weight of 2 continents on her shoulders. And if she falls short again, then her story remains what it already is, one of the most human, most compelling sagas tennis has ever known.